Okay, in this video we're looking at making salts. We're going to be thinking about bases and what they are. We're going to be looking at neutralization reactions. We're going to be writing some word equations, some symbol equations, and then explain what's actually happening in terms of a neutralization reaction. So first of all, a base. Well, a base is a substance that neutralizes an acid. So it's just like an alkali in that respect. However, a base does not dissolve in water. It's insoluble. Bases are metal oxides, so we need to remember that on the left hand side of the periodic table we'll find our metals. So we could have copper oxides, zinc oxides, cobalt oxides. There's a long list of oxides that we could use, or metal oxides that we can use, and we choose the metal because we want to identify a particular salt that we want to make. So in summary, alkalis are bases. Bases are simply substances that neutralize acids, whereas alkalis are soluble, bases are insoluble. Okay, so for the first learning outcome, describing, if I was to describe what happens, I'd be using what's called the general equation. An acid plus a base makes a salt and water, so that's your general equation. Okay, so we're now going to think about writing word equations, and the important part here is recognizing what acids make what salts. So we've got to learn this off by pat. Okay, so here I've got our general equation. Acid plus a base makes a salt and water. The base I'm choosing to use is going to be copper oxide for these examples, and I'm going to use these three acids. So if I try hydrochloric acid first of all, so the first one I'll come in here with is hydrochloric acid when my pen starts to work. So I'll have hydrochloric acid here. So imagine I'm substituting hydrochloric acid. So hydrochloric acid plus copper oxide would make copper chloride. Okay, so the first part of the name comes from the base. It's always a metal. And the second part of the name comes from the acid. So hydrochloric acid gives you chloride. Right, so let's do another one. Let's now put sulfuric acid in. So sulfuric acid plus copper oxide, that's going to make copper sulfate. And then finally we can use nitric acid. Nitric acid plus copper oxide is going to give us copper nitrate. And of course we're always getting water formed in these neutralization reactions. Okay, so what I have here, I've looked at the formula for the acids. Obviously we know the hydrogens dissociate, so I'm left with a chloride ion, Cl-. The sulfate ion is SO4 2-, and the nitrate ion is NO3-. Now you would have looked at these molecules when you were looking at ionic bonding, so they should be familiar. Meanwhile, our metal is copper 2+. So it's important that we get these charges to balance. Again, you've done that work previously with ionic compounds. So hydrochloric acid plus copper oxide, our salt is obviously going to be the metal chloride, Cu2+, and therefore I've got to have 2 of the negative chloride ions to get that to balance. Copper sulfate, obviously SO4 2-, Cu2+, so they're balanced, so copper sulfate as our salt. And then we've got copper nitrate, so here we've got NO3. Now I need 2 of these NO3 molecules with its negative charge in order to balance their 2 positive charge. So that's written as copper nitrate. With practice you will get familiar with these, and there's another section in acids and bases that looks at balancing these neutralization reactions. So the final learning intention was to explain what happens during a neutralization reaction. So in our explanation we've clearly got our base, and the base is reacting with the acid, but we can see hydrochloric acid being a strong acid, it's dissociated, and we have the salt being formed. So the magnesium oxide is reacting with the acid to make the magnesium chloride salt, and on the right hand side you can see the magnesium chloride salt, and that's clearly dissolved in the water. So that's magnesium chloride being produced. It's a soluble salt. But what else do we have going on? Well, the hydrogen ions are reacting with the oxygen in the base. So the hydrogen and the oxygen are reacting to get our water molecules. And of course, this is how water is formed. So that's the significance of this chemical reaction. Yes, we're learning how to name our salt, but we're recognizing that the base is able to mop up all those hydrogen ions in the acid and to neutralize those hydrogen ions because they're now forming water. So you've got a description here in this model of what's actually happening, explaining what's happening. You've got a chemical equation showing you the formula, and then you've got the word equation there. So it's all spelled out on that slide.